there's about 11 million bits per second of information that comes at us, sensory data, let's say, right? And at a conscious level, we can only take in around about 126 bits per second. So guess what? You are deleting, distorting, and generalizing a whole heap of information.
Yes.
And a lot of what we are absorbing, taking in, we're giving a certain meaning to it, which is really subjective. The meaning I've given that situation is very, very subjective. So I can reframe it and I can choose to see it in a different way.
All right, welcome into Let That Sink In, where we talk about communications issues and a whole lot more. The goal to help you, our audience, more successful at selling yourself. I'm your host, Vaughn, and my co-host is my favorite PR and marketing practitioner, Carlet Delia. And Carlet, as usual, say something to the people.
Hey everybody, it's so great to be back. We had a little break, but here we are. Good to see you.
All right, so let me take this time to invite you to subscribe to our channel. I guarantee you won't regret it. And if you can think of anybody who might be interested in what we do, go ahead and share it with them. We would appreciate that. Now, today we have a great show for you. We're looking into a topic called Neuro Linguistic Programming, which, if used correctly, I am told has the power to help people control how people view them and react to them. Here to help us break it down is Jamaican NLP specialist Elizabeth Perry. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Oh, thank you very much, Fawn and Carlet. It's wonderful to be here.
All right, so let me get into the backstory behind today's program. Let me cue up the graphic.
Let that sink in.
All right, Liz. Now, a lot of us we're familiar with magic and magic tricks, right? Now, a trick that many magicians like to do is present individuals with a number of items and ask them to select one or a few of them. Then, after a series of elaborate activities and so on, they reveal that they had written down your selection like a week before the event happened and knew what you were going to select because they had been subconsciously manipulating you to make that choice or choices using the power of suggestion. I've been told that the quote unquote science behind that process is something called neuro linguistic programming. Now, Elizabeth, as far as NLP is concerned, am I in the ballpark or am I way off base with that?
Well, people often think about NLP as something that is going to help you manipulate others. And sometimes we get a bad name. So people like, oh, NLP, no, don't tell me anything about that because you're going to get into my head and, reprogram me or something. So
Right,
I want
hypnotized.
to, exactly. So I want to say that, there is a purpose for NLP, which is perfectly ethical. And that is to help an individual reprogram their own minds. That's the first thing, the first point of call. And to answer specifically your question about, if you can influence other people, yes, you can. I
Okay.
mean, just like television, it can be used for positive purposes and negative purposes. Like almost anything in life, if you think about it, right? And so NLP is no different. You can use it to assist you in getting better results in your life, in building better relationships, in being able to communicate more effectively, in being able to build rapport easily with people, to set goals and to achieve them, and the list goes on and on, right? But yes, in amongst those things, we can use it to help positively influence people. And I always stress the ethics of it because when I teach practitioners or within any of my other courses that involve some of the techniques of NLP, it's always about um, ethical persuasion and influence. So I want to stress that because it's very important to me.
Ethical. All right. So that
Yes,
implies that there are persons who might not be so ethical and might seek to use it in
of
ways. So,
course.
so I guess the
That's
question really
everything.
is, the question really is, can somebody use NLP to manipulate me without my own knowledge?
Well, there's a movie, and for the life of me, I can't remember it at the moment, but it stars Will Smith. And I saw it actually late last year.
Sounds like
And
Hitch.
no, it's
Not
not
Hitch.
Hitch. No,
Okay.
it's not Hitch. It's actually him playing the part of a super gambler.
Ah, okay.
And I need to go back and find the name of that movie. But maybe Carla can
Is
find
it
it. Google it.
Focus?
Focus.
Focus.
That's it.
Okay.
Absolutely right. Focus. And there is a scene or a couple of scenes. Carla, you saw the show or
Yes,
Vaughn?
yes,
Right.
Yes. Yes.
yes.
So
Both
do
With
sides.
you
Yeah.
Margaret
do you,
Robbie.
yes. So do you remember the scene where they are at the game and he wins big with that? I think he's a very rich Chinese guy,
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
remember that. Yeah. I remember that scene. Yeah.
And he puts the girl in this really awkward position because she thinks that she's no way going to help him win.
Mm-hmm.
And really, he is absolutely sure of it because what he has done is program that the fellow that the gambler on
Right.
the other side, right? He has been showing him a particular number all day.
Mm.
So he walks into the
Ah,
lobby. There is a number. I forget what number it is now, but let's call it 88.
Right.
And there's 88. And then he goes into the elevator and it flashes 88. And he
yeah.
goes somewhere else and he sees it on his shirt 88. And so he realizes that that is the number that he is going to actually be calling because he has been actually being programmed
Right. Right.
throughout the day subliminally with this number. And so it's top of mind and it works like a charm. When he's asked to pick the fellow from the field, he knows he's going to pick the guy with 88. So, yeah, it
So,
absolutely is possible. And, our minds are quite malleable.
Hmm.
And that can be a good thing, some people would say, because that means we can actually change our minds. Sometimes we think we can't, but we can change our minds. And
so
so,
Charlotte, this sounds like something you might have a little insight as a PR and marketing
mhm.
person. How are you and your colleagues using these techniques to manipulate us? How are you?
No, no, absolutely. We are ethically
Okay.
Thank you.
using these techniques to influence, yes, but not. The point being, yes, he chose 88 because that was top of mind in a
Mhm.
scenario where things are fluid and such, and he snapped to it.
Right.
But I certainly believe that in using NPL, we have the power to influence, but not determine the decisions that people make. Because if you are making a
Mhm.
big decision, you are thinking about it, you are exploring different areas, then this is
Mhm.
just one of the tools to take you along a path, but it's not going to shove you down the road, At
Okay.
least that's
No,
my view.
Yes,
no,
it's the
I,
power of suggestion, not
Yes.
prediction,
yes.
if you will.
Yes.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you gave that example from a
Mm-hmm.
communications practitioner point of view,
All right.
because it's always up to the individual. And when you do make important decisions, you make them consciously. You are contemplating. In a situation like that movie, it is a sort of guessing game, right? And it's not something you
All right.
actually are doing
So
consciously.
Elizabeth,
You're doing it unconsciously.
Yes. In the moment.
Hmm.
Mhm.
all right. So Elizabeth, you mentioned doing it ethical ways. Now, like I said, the purpose of our show is to show, give people ideas how they can market themselves better. Market their products, their ideas better, so that they can have more success personally and professionally. Now, how does NPR? What value does it have? Why should a young professional be concerned with this field or this discipline, and how can it actually reap benefits in their lives?
Okay, so it's NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming. So let me first of all break it down
Mhm.
a little bit, right? So neuro has to do with the mind and the nervous system,
Mhm.
and that has everything to do with how we absorb information externally from our external environment through our five senses, yeah,
Mm.
and how we store that information, and then how we are going to communicate it back out. We give meaning to it according to some subjective way of us analyzing the situation, right? We give a meaning to it. And then we communicate with language, we communicate with body language, we communicate also with ourselves through self
Mm.
talk, right? And then the programming is sort of, it's like the DOS, on the computer that runs in the background,
The
the
code
program,
or
the
the
code,
kernel. Right.
right? So that is becomes our experiences and how we interpret them from very early on in life. These become our unconscious programs, meaning that we're not even aware that most times we are an automatic pilot. We're just going about doing things and we're not thinking about it
Just
because we
living
learned
life.
them so well, right? So most often the difficulties persons have are really around those unconscious programs, those things that have ended up defining our lives. So you spoke about like confidence. Confidence stems from a number of things, and one of them is your self-concept. What you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, how you rate yourself. And a lot of that starts from very early in life. And maybe things that you picked up, experiences you had, what your parents told you or your teachers told you. And sometimes just out of an unconscious remark that a child may pick up and hold on to for some reason and say, oh my God, yeah, I see Carlet
Yes.
gesticulating.
Exactly.
My music teacher told me at 8 that I can't sing, and let me tell you, 40
Since
years later,
then,
I'm still
That's
like,
it.
oh
you've
God,
never tried it, right?
never
Right.
even tried.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I mean, it's a lot of times people are not meaningfully wanting to hurt you.
No, no.
They just it's a remark or something that a child picks up. And can you imagine if it is intentionally done? How much
Mm.
deeper,
That
that
is cut.
that
Yeah.
trauma is. Yeah. So at that age, between 0 and 7, our minds our conscious mind is not fully developed. That's a thinking mind that will critically analyze things, and it's not fully developed. So everything just goes straight into the unconscious, like a sponge. So
Right.
a
Sponge.
child literally is like a sponge. And so everything that comes, and they take it very personally. And that's how a lot of our difficulties later in life, that's where it stems from a lot of times, from our self concept and self esteem. And self confidence has a lot to do with that. And also just practice. When I was growing up, I would never have thought that I would have become a trainer. But somebody saw something in me, and I did a training course, and voila, here I am, how many years later, and I
Okay.
absolutely love it, right? So many of us don't start off like that, but guess what? We have experiences, and we practice, and we get positive affirmation from other people, and we feel good about it, and then our self confidence rises.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you help people explore their own thoughts, I suppose, to help them get to those that confidence that may have been
Oh,
carried under
yes,
all
absolutely.
these the expectations or the
Mhm.
negative thoughts that other people would have said to them over the years, help them to push those to the side and bring up the
Yeah,
positive energy, positive
we
thought processes and
actually
so on.
we actually have techniques that will help persons to eliminate negative, what I call negative emotional baggage, right? Especially the five major negative emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, all of that stuff, which is like real heavy. And people are carrying it around with them. And it affects your day to day living. So that's not, great stuff to have on your back. And limiting beliefs, like what I can do and what I can't do. we have a saying here is it's so mimic.
Yeah,
So
and
right.
and the
So
saying that goes, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
yes, and it's true.
Exactly.
It absolutely is true. So
Maybe I
it is a
can sing.
question.
Yeah, maybe you
Yeah,
can sing after
Singing.
all, you know.
you
I mean, you don't have
most
to practice
likely
here
can.
right now. You don't have to practice right here right now. But I'm just saying, maybe tomorrow in the bathroom by
Yeah,
yourself, away from the sun,
yeah.
right?
No, no, don't do
All right,
that.
all right. So where does that process start? When a person comes to you for a consultation,
Yes.
what do you take them through?
Well, first of all, I need to know what the problem is, and how that is a problem for them. Because in NLP, yes, we have to get a sort of personal history, but we're more concerned with um, the structure of the problem, how the person actually does it, the 1, 2, 3 steps that they go through. It's like everybody has a strategy to do something, right? Even getting up in the morning, or having your coffee, or blowing a fuse, or having a phobia. Everything has a strategy. So we break it down into, um, not to use technical terms, we break it down into little steps, into component parts, and we get an understanding of what those steps are, and how we can best intervene in that process. And sometimes it's doing things like what I call timeline therapy. Sometimes it's just getting that person to think differently by having them solve their own problems. Because we come from the perspective that everyone has within them all the resources they need to get the results they want. So it's a really positive way of looking at an individual, right? So nobody is incapable. Not that you're broken and we have to fix you. Nothing like that.
Okay.
You really have everything you need. You just haven't connected the dots. And so my role is to help you connect the dots and to assist you with rethinking the problem. Sometimes, even with languaging and questioning, that person can begin to recognize that it is just a false belief that they have created for themselves, and it's not
Right.
anything else. Because if you keep on thinking the same thought often enough, and
Yes.
reinforcing it, it becomes a belief, a conviction that you have, like, and a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I can't sing, Carlette,
Mm-hmm.
and because I know I can't sing, then if somebody asks me to sing, I know I'm going to make a fool of myself, and of course I
Mm-hmm.
do, right?
So I guess like I saw. Let me ask you first. Like, what is the ideal outcome? Or it's a bit of a general question to ask you what the ideal outcome is. But when you see when having gone through the steps with you and so on, what are suppose are some of the ideal
Outcomes.
changes that you will
Mhm.
see in a person who comes? Because I would imagine it
Mm-hmm.
varies. Not everybody is
It does.
necessarily not confident or so, and other person might have
Exactly.
different challenges. So, what are some of the hallmarks that can show you that okay, maybe this person moving in the right direction?
Yeah. Yes. Well, somebody who is recognizing first and foremost that they are cause to their effect, meaning that they take 100% responsibility for any results that they get in their life, whether those be negative or positive. And it's not to say that nobody ever helps you, or you don't believe in a higher power or anything like that. But I believe God gave us the power of creation,
Mm-hmm.
and most of us use it unconsciously and in a very ad hoc way. And so we get what we get. And the idea is that I'm assisting you in developing your power of choice, in actually recognizing and saying to yourself, listen, I'm 100% responsible for the results that I get in my life, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
barring, okay, natural disasters and COVID and, whatever. But don't
Of
make those
course.
an excuse, right? You take full responsibility for your actions and your responses to situations, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is the responsibility. It's your response to situations. And so when you do that, then it puts you back in the driver's seat. So that's the first thing that I work with my clients, and some people are very resistant to it because normally when somebody has a problem, they figure it is the landlord, it's the boss, it's the husband, it's the wife,
I don't
it's
mean.
yeah,
Obviously, I'm
right.
perfect.
No, no,
Obviously,
no.
I'm
It's
perfect, so it couldn't
him.
possibly be
Right.
me. Yeah,
It's
that
their
can't be
It's
me.
fault,
him
not mine.
Yeah.
or her or
You call it,
whatever.
is your music teacher? Why you're not alongside
Yeah.
Rihanna
Exactly.
and so on? Yeah,
Yes.
fight against you.
Yeah.
And once you get to to be an adult, I mean, you can get away with that when you're a child. But once you get to be an adult, now you are in the driver's seat. So I would say that that's the first thing that somebody has to be able to demonstrate that I'm willing to take 100% responsibility. And that begins the process of change. Because without that, then you better send your wife or your husband or your boss to
Mm,
me because, it's the problem is
yes.
them, it's not
They're
you.
not.
Yeah.
How do I even know that this, 'cause a lot of us, right, Carl, like we're just going about our daily lives. We're all right, we're managing, we get by, we're good,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sounds like I'm naturally with the benefit from this NLP training, but why would I think I need it? You know what I mean?
What's the
How do
tipping
Well,
I,
point that helps
mm,
us
yeah, what's the tipping
recognize?
point? How
yes.
do I know that I need
How do
something?
you know? Well, most people who make a decision to change do so because they're feeling some level of pain in their lives. That's the truth. I mean, if you're going along happily, even if you're living in what we call the gray zone, right, and you're not really happy, but you're not really in pain either, then you tend to muddle along until some heart collapse come,
Mm,
and then you realize, oh my God, you know, he's really divorcing me, or
I
I
lost my
really,
job.
I've really been fired, or I've lost my job, or something has happened to you, and or there is just such a level of frustration because you recognize that there is some achievement that you want in your life, and it has completely evaded you, and so you're very frustrated. All kinds of things like that happen, and that's usually what brings somebody to my door to say, hey, I just can't take it anymore. I just want to, I'm ready to change, because that's when you're going to get the best results. When you are in the ditch and you recognize that, boy, I don't know if I can go any lower, so then I really must go up now. Right,
no,
and
Yes.
now
Rock
I'm going to
bottom.
make a change. Yeah.
you hit that rock bottom,
Yeah.
that place,
Yeah.
and you have
Yeah.
to just make a change for your own good and your
Yes.
own sanity.
Hmm.
Absolutely, because if everything is going along okay, and I mean, some people, as I can, are in the gray zone. They're not really good, but they're not really bad either, and they'll tend to remain there until something kicks them off. And of course, those who are, in the happy zone, the magic zone, then they don't need me. Yeah.
No, but Jamaica is notorious for not really going to any psychologist or seeking
Hmm.
out a worse, a life coach. And like, I don't know nobody
Yeah.
coach me. We're good. Yeah, just listen to
Yeah.
Bob Marley. Listen to Bob Marley. Smoke a spliff, drink some white rum, and we're good. Yeah, man, all right, man.
Yeah.
Everything good, man. So do you find that people actually
Mhm.
are taking up this service in Jamaica?
You'd be surprised, and a lot of them are men.
That is shocking. I am not. I'm very surprised to hear.
I tell you, I was too, but I believe, and they tend to be the younger generation. I would say between the ages of 28 and say maybe about 35. I think life, especially now in the last year, has become very difficult. And maybe that's what's propelled a lot of people to recognize, hey, I need something. I need something more because I could just go down the rabbit hole. So I think that it is perhaps the external circumstances that have pushed some of these persons forward. I mean, COVID is a reset. Yeah, things have changed
Mhm.
substantially. So yeah.
Now, so any success stories? I mean, any ways in which we can sell this idea that maybe getting? I mean, it seems like it should be, but not normal. As you mentioned, sometimes people need that push.
Hmm.
Any stories person can
Get me, I'm
relate to that
sold.
might
I
make
want to
them.
sign up now.
Wow.
Yes, well, I did have a client who was absolutely fearful of public speaking. And well, one of her first class, because I give people work to do, right? It's not just come and see me and go home, right? They have things to do. And um, she had to join Toastmasters because a lot of times it's just fear, right? That is some belief that you have that you've been thinking all along, and you
That
just
some
need to
teacher
break through
told
that.
you. Yes,
You just
break
need to
through
break
it.
through the barrier. And sometimes it's skills too, because a lot of these things are skills that you can acquire. So she went and she started, and the next thing you know, she was feeling so much more comfortable. And yes, I can do it, and all that. People who have had real heavy emotional burdens. A lot of folks have gone through trauma of one kind or another and are now in a better place. Persons whose marriage was on the rocks
Mm.
and things not looking too rosy at all around. And the difference is it has made in their lives, both on a personal level and a professional level. So it all depends on what somebody comes in for.
Right. So in
And I
terms,
have
yeah,
a
sure.
question from a whole other perspective. So
Hmm.
we can use the techniques to improve ourselves, but we can
Right.
also use the techniques to improve others. Yes. So
Hmm.
I'm a parent growing up in
Yes.
Jamaica, and I'm used to stick broke off in your ears, and you're too full, you're thick headed, and those kinds of
Mm,
expressions are so
Mm.
of course.
normal here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a modern parent, I'm trying to reprogram myself and my language to be uplifting
Hmm.
and supportive. Is this
Yes.
not something that NPL would help me with?
Yes. Well, indeed, because the more that you understand about how your mind works, is the more that you are now thinking about how you are communicating to other people. And whether that's your children or whether it's your
Others.
colleagues or anybody at all. Because ultimately, you want your communication to land in a particular way to get a particular result. And if your communication is not getting that result, then you need to reconsider how you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, the more you know about the mind, and the mind is such a
The
powerful
better.
thing,
Right.
is the better you will be as a parent, as an
Mm-hmm.
employee, an entrepreneur,
Right.
whatever it is you're doing in life, sort of like an all around.
Yeah, so make
It's
me better as well as make the people around me better. And
Exactly.
Yvonne, we
absolutely.
spoke about influence earlier, and it's not about manipulation and look
Mhm.
here,
Yeah.
give me all your money. But
Yes.
also, from my perspective, if I need to communicate to you that vaccines are good,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to take a vaccine for your own well-being and benefit, if I need to communicate to you that we have to avoid the bus because we are boycotting the buses because of racism or such and so forth, the better I can communicate that
Hmm.
message, the more impact that I can have, the more influence I can
Absolutely.
have. It's not about manipulation, but
No.
rather inspiration, right? Am I right? Am I
Inspiration.
wrong?
Yeah. Well, you
Sounds
see,
like
yes. I mean,
spoken like a true marketing professional.
I mean, I guess at some point, everybody has the power of choice, right? But you want to make that choice with full information and knowing. And there's so much out there today in the cyber world that is misinformation. And the ability to think critically is so important. I mean, it was important before, but now with all of these things coming at you, you need to be able to test theories and really go back and say, hey, could this really be correct? I mean, I hate to bring up Trump, but look at his supporters, and you look at them and you say to yourself, oh my God, how can anybody even think like this? It's crazy. But as I was explaining to
I
somebody,
get it.
they live in an alternate universe. Their universe is Fox News, and I think there's another station or two that are
That's
like
just
that.
feeding.
And it
There are
feeds
plenty.
them, yeah, it feeds this kind of information to them, and they surround themselves with the same kind of thinking people. And after a while, you can't see anything else.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Mm-hmm.
programmed.
The age of the age of
Yeah,
confirmation bias. You just look out for stuff that agrees with your worldview, and you just
ex-
surround yourself with all
that's
that
right.
information every day.
Algorithms are part of the problem. I'm a techie, but algorithms.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, they do. And they keep on bringing you the same sort of stuff.
yeah.
If you click on something, they're going to keep on bringing it
I'm
to you.
gonna sleep into.
Yeah,
Now, as you mentioned that, now it's interesting what Carlette mentioned about being able to be able to change how she communicates with her son and so on. Now,
mhm,
the process itself of unlearning, I
mhm.
guess, harmful ideas or harmful things are things that are basically blocking your progress, keeping you in your own way. Talk to me about that process and how you help people to get out of their own way and unlearn those harmful or those self limiting ideas.
Beliefs. Okay. Well, the first thing you have to understand is the communication process, which is a little, we describe it in a little different way. So, first of all, there's about 11 million bits per second of information that comes at us, you know, sensory data, let's say, right? And at a conscious level, we can only take in around about 126 bits per second.
Mm,
So let me repeat that 11 million bits per second, 126 bits
mm,
per second. So guess what? You are deleting, distorting, and generalizing a whole
Yes.
heap of information,
Yes.
right? And
Generalizing.
how do we do that? I mean, it's a normal process because your conscious mind can only process so many, bits per second, right? And so it's a way of coping with the overload. And then some of it just bypasses and goes into your unconscious. And some of it doesn't get in at all, right? It's just tossed out. So understanding that is important because what does that say? It really says because when you're taking that information, you are then forming what we call an internal representation of that information, right? So that is a fancy word to say a kind of memory snapshot of it, which is likely to be something visual, something auditory, and some feeling attached to it, and that is becomes our sort of filing system. So we file our experiences in these little internal representations, and a lot of what we are absorbing, taking in, we're giving a certain meaning to it, which is really
mm,
subjective.
mm,
So people have to recognize that everything that we experience as an individual is exceedingly subjective. It's personal to you. And
mm,
so if it's like you go to see a movie and Carlette goes with you, Vaughn, and she comes out and she says, "Hey, it was a wonderful movie. I really loved it." And you're going and you say, "Oh my God, I don't think I can sit through another one like that," right?
mm,
And it's different. And I mean, that's a very simplistic example, but the point is that we each give an experience a meaning according to our own internal filters, right? We have filters.
mm,
So what does that say to me as a person? It says that really, what is a reality for you, Vaughn, and for you, Carlette, is not necessarily the same for me. It opens my mind to a couple of things. One, that we are, um, you're not more right than me. Yes? Because you
Yes.
have had experiences that are going to filter things in a particular way. So that's one. So we respect each other's model of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very important thing, right?
mm,
Another part of it is that I can then choose to view and to experience that situation with a different meaning. The meaning I've given that situation is
Mm-hmm.
very, very subjective. So
Yes.
I can reframe it. and I can choose to see it in a different way. People might say, well, somebody
Yeah, that sounds a lot easier said than done. You know what I mean?
yes, in some
But if
situations
we make an
it is.
effort, then we make an
Yeah,
effort.
in some situations, something really traumatic and tragic, yes. But even the concept of death and dying, let's take the most morbid thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you are Christian, you believe in life after death, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And therefore, um, it is simply release of the body which may have been in pain, for example,
Yes.
on to another level of existence. And therefore, if that person, particularly if they have been suffering, we as the human self are going to be grieving, but we're grieving for us and for the fact that we're missing them on a human level.
Right.
But we can begin to look at death as just another level of life and experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, I'm testing you here,
Yeah, yeah,
No, no,
I'm
I'm
following you.
very,
I
but you
understand
understand
exactly
what
what you
I'm
mean.
saying?
Yeah.
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid because I do believe that. And I found myself in situations where I can't understand why someone would think like that. And then I try to stop and think about how their experience might be different. I had a cousin tragically killed walking down the street at 2 years old by a drunk driver.
Oh
And
my
I'm
God.
petrified of walking on streets. I have to do it,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
and then somebody else who didn't have that experience, like, what happened to you? Why are you going to just cross the street? So,
Mm.
and I try
Yes.
my very best to think about what they may have gone through that I don't know.
Hmm.
When people are mean to me on the road and they cut me off, I try to say, "Oh, they're in a rush somewhere. They didn't mean
Yeah.
to.
Much
They
more
just in
important
a
than where
situation."
I'm
Yes,
going.
Yeah.
yes, yes. It's and I believe wholeheartedly in everything that you say, and that empathy is necessary to make the world a better place.
Of course.
All right. So it's about
Definitely.
that perspective shift and understanding that, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Perspective shift.
ascribing a new meaning to it. But I mean,
Hmm.
I agree with you completely. Don't get me wrong. I do. It's something that I have believed from a long. It's funny how you just stumble into these things independently of all
Hmm.
these philosophy and all these things. I always just found that, just like how failure, and if you fail or you fail a test or something, is like,
Hmm.
at one point I was worried about failing, then I realized, hold on, if I fail, I might learn how to succeed next time. You know what I mean? It's just
That's right.
I'm making a mistake so that I can learn how to not make this mistake
Yeah. Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
future.
In
But
fact,
I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
it's hard because I'm just to finish it, just saying it's hard because we live in a world, for example, that tells you that, the best people get it right the first time, and you know what I mean. The best people,
Ouch.
please.
that's true. But they tell you that the best people get it right the first time, and the best and the brightest do it right, and
Hmm.
you know what I mean. So it's
Hmm.
almost like the world bombards you with this idea of
Hmm.
perfection, and we're constantly chasing it. So it's, you know what I mean. You almost find yourself
Yeah.
having to climb an uphill battle to tell yourself, no, that's just one way of looking at it. Maybe there's a
Yes.
different side of the coin completely, and you can learn something else over there.
Completely. One of our tenets or principles is that there is no failure, there is only feedback.
I love that.
So, yeah, no failure, only feedback. So, if let's say you set a goal and your goal was to make, I don't know, 100 sales in the month, and you actually got 50% of that. And so instead of, your boss beating you up, or maybe you're working on your own or something, um, you can say to yourself, okay, so what can I do differently?
Mm-hmm.
That 50 is only telling you something about your actions or maybe mindset that you had in that month. So it's telling you that you have to do something differently if you want to get the 100 sales for the month. Because maybe you were just cocking up your foot and pick up the phone every now and again and not really giving it your all. Or maybe you are giving it your all, but in your mind you said, nah, I don't think I'm going to make it. So you defeat yourself
Right.
Indeed.
Right.
I
twice.
had to sing for my clients and I didn't sing and they felt bad.
That's
Right.
right. So it's just feedback. And I don't know how many people, Vaughn, have done some great work and done it just once for their lifetime. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden they got it and they went up. I mean, I think
Then they tell
Albert
you that
Einstein.
geniuses are born, not made, and you know what I mean. There's a whole set of people who believe that
I know this is
it's
all
just to be
programming.
great. Greatness is just intrinsic, and you can't do what I do because you're not me and you're not great like me.
I
And
don't
you
know
know
who
what I
you've been
mean? So
talking to, Vaughn. You need to stop talking to them.
yeah, I do. I'm just saying there's lots of people who think that way, and it's almost like failure is,
Yes,
but failure is not rewarded or encouraged in any way. You're
yes,
supposed to, if you fail, that's a mistake, and that's a you. You know what I mean? It's almost like
yeah,
you are the failure, not that you made a mistake, but you made the
yes,
mistake, and you are the
mhm,
mistake. You know what I mean? So there are persons who believe that
yes.
and accept that. You know what I mean? So it's hard
And
to.
there's another important one that you just said a while ago,
Mm,
that and we have it. We separate behavior from the person.
mm,
So we may absolutely detest the behavior of that person, but it doesn't mean that we have to
Yes.
detest the person,
Yes.
because that behavior is based on some kind of thinking and programming, and feeling that they have had. So it doesn't mean that they are necessarily a complete write off as a person. It
mm.
just
Exactly.
means that that behavior is unacceptable.
Hmm.
One thing I
And that
also wanted
speaks
to
to
ask
me
you,
as a
Hmm.
parent too. Yes, Bon.
Yes. Hmm.
right, in terms of the idea of making a mistake and not being, the thing I've learned recently, the thing I've arrived at is we are not our mistake. So, for example, if you make a mistake, that was just a moment in time where you had a lapse in judgment or whatever. You basically just made a mistake and did something bad. And rather than having that, what steps as a NLP practitioner can you recommend to have persons not feel like that kind of failure should follow them for the rest of their life and determine their future? Because you're always gonna you might not try anything because you're thinking, oh, you know what, I'm gonna mess this up like I messed that up last time, or everybody's gonna think I'm gonna fail, so nobody's gonna believe in me. So you defeat yourself before you even get going.
Hmm.
How do
Hmm.
you respond to that?
Yeah, well, that is actually something quite frequent, that people have this idea that, they can't do it for some reason. It comes almost back to the confidence issue, you
Mm,
know, and so they don't want to do it. So we look at, first of all, well, how did you come to that conclusion?
mm,
And so we kind of make them talk about, okay, so I come to that conclusion because I did A and B and C, and I didn't do it well, and people laughed at me.
mm,
And then we examine other areas of their lives where maybe they have been successful, or they have achieved, a certain level of confidence. So if you can do confidence in one scenario, it means you can do confidence in another.
mm,
Hmm.
It's a matter of taking that learning, that feeling, that strategy, and transposing it into this situation, right? And recognizing, yeah, okay, so it's just a strategy that maybe I need to change. So we work on maybe strategy, because it depends on the person. Sometimes it's a limiting belief that they have developed, and we need to work on that, and we have techniques to help somebody. And sometimes it's just that they are not going about it in a positive way that's going to get the result that they want. Take, for example, come back to school children, right? So some kids just don't have good study habits,
Hmm.
and that's why they don't do well in exams. They are all over the place. So providing some structure and some focus, and time to sit, maybe have different ways of learning, because kids learn in different ways. Sometimes it's good to have a partner, and you are back and forth,
Hmm.
with spelling, or with taking you up on questions, and really getting a sense of your confidence with the material. So it changes. It depends on the person and what the situation is. Sometimes it's strategy, sometimes it's belief, sometimes it's a concept. Yeah, difficult to
mm.
say. There's no necessarily one size fits all in a
Okay.
situation.
All right. So as we kind of move to bring things down, now in terms
Gosh,
of
an hour is gone already. Can't wait.
yeah, right, bringing things down in terms of key takeaways for any person who comes across this interview and is thinking, okay, NLP can help me to start
Mhm.
boosting my confidence and positioning myself to start visioning and achieving my
Yeah.
my goals and whatever.
Mhm.
What are some of the key principles that are key takeaways that they can use as departure points to go deeper into it to start, building up themselves and developing the persona that they want to have and projecting the self that they want to the world?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, it's to recognize that you can change. Um, if you want to, because that's a big question, right? If you don't want to, then no amount of coaching is going to help you. You have to want and to be willing to do the work. I think I come back to what the first point that I made, which is that you need to really commit yourself to taking 100% responsibility for your life,
Mm-hmm.
because that way you can make changes, and I can help you connect your internal dots that are there, but you just haven't learned how to put them together yet. So it's like a jigsaw puzzle, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so what I do is help you to put the pieces in place so that you can get to the goal and to the outcome that you want. And that outcome or goal can have to do with business, it can have to do with relationships, it might just be, figuring out what you want in life, your course, your purpose, and how do you find that and marry that with your business. It's a gamut of things, but essentially it's about being able to use your creativity to create a life of joy, of peace, and fulfillment. I think that's ultimately what everybody wants, right?
All right,
Yes, it sounds good.
that's what everybody wants. You
Yes.
want to live your best life. You know what I mean? You want to
Yes.
live a life that
Yeah.
feels good. You wake up every day and you're glad to be up and you're glad to be doing what you want
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Vaughn, when are we signing up?
I don't know, man. I mean, I was asked about Oscar when does she have any books or anything like that. Where can people find you, Elizabeth? Where can they
Yes.
find you if they want to get in contact and start the process, start the journey? How they get in touch?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a website. It's Limitless Transformation JA.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Limitless Transformation Jamaica. And of course, you can email me, nlptrainingjamaica@gmail.com,
All
or you
right.
may WhatsApp me at 876-556-5177.
May I
All
have that
right.
website
Sounds
again?
fantastic.
Yes, Limitless Transformation JA.com.
Okay.
All right. So I want to ask you before as my last question.
Mm-hmm.
So Elizabeth, as
Yes.
someone who knows what's going on, we know that in the media they are subliminally suggesting things to us. How do we learn to identify this? Are there any tricks in trade or tactics in practice you can help us to know what's going on? Say, no, look at my flight.
So
How
that
much time?
you never be tricked by Khaled.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So we don't know what's going on. You know what I
How
mean?
do you find the crazy
I
88?
need to see what's going on. I need to know if I see too
Yes.
much 88. I need to see if they're making me wear blue today so that I can feel connected to whichever product them have. I need to know what kind of things what any tactics you can share, any
Well, I
secret
think you
sauce.
have to. Yes, I think first of all, when you're looking at advertisements and so forth, you have to engage your conscious mind. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we're not, and so the TV's on, and the ads come on, and do you find sometimes that you end up singing the jingles?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because it's just playing around in your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you go to the supermarket and you
Mm-hmm.
have been hearing a lot about a particular product, and you automatically think about it. So it's like putting a pause button, right, on something, and recognizing, okay, so is this product really what I need at this point? It's about engaging your conscious mind and your critical thinking, because a lot of times we're doing things on automatic pilot. So it is really to think about it and to say, oh, okay, I'm going to be a self-reflecting individual.
See, there's no
All right,
magic to
if
it,
you say
son.
so.
Just being
It's not
Sound like
mindful.
magic.
Just being mindful. That's all.
Yeah,
sound like it
yeah.
because I was doing some reading about things like mirroring and when person come up to you and adapt the same body language as you, and
Mhm.
then so then they try to touch you and whenever you have like a moment where you're really happy or really sad, they touch you so that they can trigger you with like
Anchor you.
that emotional
We actually teach anchoring
exactly.
and matching and
What's
mirroring.
wrong with all of I do all
Yeah.
of
It
that.
sounds great. I just want to know how I can do it so I can use it
Well,
to.
come to one of my
There you
courses,
go.
All right,
That's what
fine,
we need.
fine. I'll come
and
to your
I'll teach
course.
you.
All right, fine,
Yes, I'll
great.
teach you all those tricks of the trade.
All
Sounds
right,
like a plan.
sounds great. Sounds
Yeah.
fantastic. All right, Liz, you sound like you have a lot of things to talk about, to
Hmm.
share and teach
Hmm.
persons who come, which is why I'm glad to segue into our next segment, which
Hmm.
is
Let that sink in.
Okay, one song, one book.
right. So it's pretty simple. One book, one song, and one experience that you recommend other people try just to get into, just
Hmm.
to let them get a sense of your slice of life. What do you recommend?
Okay, so I have a book that I believe is very, very powerful.
Ooh.
It's called You Are the Placebo, Making Your Mind Matter.
Okay.
And it is by Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a best-selling author, and he has done a lot of experiments on the brain and neuroscience and how it works. And so it goes into a lot of detail to explain to you some of the things that we've been talking about here today.
Mhm.
Basically, the power of the mind and matter, meaning mind and body, because that's
Mhm.
something that we didn't speak about. But
Right.
the truth is that the mind and the body are very connected. It's like water and ice, you know? You can't really separate. They both CO2. It's just a different form.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are depressed, when you are angry, when you keep these negative things and hold on to them, inevitably they come out in some physical way.
Mhm.
It's proven. And we talk about stress. I mean, stress affects the body, and you can see that quite easily, but it can also suppress the immune system. So if you are very, very fearful, and I was only talking to somebody today about this, he has a big fear about COVID. And I said to him, listen, you need to protect yourself because actually, the more that you have the fear, is the greater the impact negatively on your immune system.
Mhm.
Because fear or any really negative emotion over a period of time has an impact on your immune system, and it's going to actually reduce your body's ability to fight infection. When you are happy and positive and up, your immune system tends to be stronger.
Okay.
So there are some really important reasons why you should just let go the rage and the anger and say, go in peace, forgive you.
When the taxi man them bad drive you, that one
I
really
know.
hard. Like, that's
Guess
really
what?
hard.
Guess what? I always say to myself, do I want to get hurt? Do I want my car damaged? I mean, what a lot of pain for very
Mhm.
little gain? It's
Yeah,
not worth it.
It's no gain.
I'm a work in progress, Liz.
Satisfaction.
I'm a work in
Yeah,
progress.
yeah.
We might have to have a session just about
That's
this. Me
ego,
and the tax,
ego, ego,
me
ego.
and us and the taxi man, the man, we might have just a section about that alone. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause that one. All right. So, any songs
Yeah.
you recommend?
Oh, no matter of recommending what songs do I like. I love Sam Cooke.
Okay.
I
Mm.
just love. Oh,
I knew I liked you. Oh.
oh, I just think he's wonderful. What a charming young man with a sexy voice. And,
Mm,
he has it all. So I like most of his songs, but it's
all right.
February,
I know.
the month of love. So
Mm.
Cupid. I'm sure you know that
Oh,
one,
Yes,
Carla.
Cupid,
Yeah.
okay.
throw back your bow.
I
Yes.
know it
Yeah.
too.
You know it
I have
too,
a
You're
radio.
boy.
too young for that, Vaughn.
I mean, it's been a while, but I
Yeah.
remember.
Mm.
It
Oh.
might not be the song I'm thinking of, but I mean, the point is, I think I've heard of
Yes.
it before. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I like a lot of different music, and I think
Mm.
anybody. who's using music, because you mentioned, people listen to Bob Marley and smoke a
Mhm.
spliff and feel cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Anything
yeah.
that's gonna put you, any music that's gonna put you in a good mood, that's the music
Yes.
you must listen to. You
Okay,
know,
Yes.
sounds good.
so that will
All
help
right.
your immune system for sure.
And apart from using things to subliminally suggest ideas, what other experiences do you recommend?
Well, I absolutely believe in meditation.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, it is so important, I find, because it allows you to stop your monkey mind, as they call it,
Mm,
your
Yes.
mental chatter. I
mhm,
mean, at first, people tend to get a bit, they say, oh, this is too hard, or what am I supposed to get out of it? But over a protracted period of time, it actually has been shown that it helps in so many ways. It helps you to ward off the rage for the taximan.
yeah, I might
That's
just
one
have to
thing.
do that one,
Yeah,
man.
Yes.
Meditation. Pull over by
yeah,
the side of the road and
yeah. But the thing is, if you
Sequence.
namaste.
namaste,
Namaste.
if you do it every day on a daily basis, you'll find that you would perhaps be less triggered by a situation
Mm,
like that. That's the truth.
mm,
And it also just helps you to, yeah, to get to feel more positive about life and to feel more centered. I mean, with all of what's been going on with COVID, it's very easy to be triggered by our external environment. And so this is a 5, 10 minutes, whatever it is that you can do on a daily practice basis. I highly recommend it. Just
all
gets you
right.
centered for the day.
So I mean, I've always people always recommend meditation, but what exactly does it? How do you meditate? You know what I mean? How?
Yeah.
And people just say
Well,
you
there
stop
are
and
different.
just breathe, or how do you
Yeah,
do it?
there are different ways to do it. I mean, one practice is guided meditation, which is generally the easiest form for somebody who is just starting. Guided meditation is usually words and sometimes music that will help to lead the person into a space of quietude and stillness, right? So
Mm,
sometimes people use that. People also use mantras, because when you repeat a mantra, what it does is just focus your mind. So instead of the mind going all over the place, you're really just thinking about one thought. I am peace, for example. I am peace. And what it does is it forces you to go internal, and as you start your breathing, and another thing is that some people don't use mantras, they just use their breathing, right? They listen to their breath, and it slows down your entire metabolism until you get to a space of feeling really relaxed and calm. Yeah, it's a form of self-hypnosis in a way.
all right, so
I'm
there
gonna
we
try
go
it on.
again.
I throw down
There
the
we go
challenge.
again with the
I
eighth
throw down
word.
the challenge. Lent is coming up. That
Mhm.
you dedicate yourself to at least 5 minutes of meditation every day of Lent. How about that? You
I've
up for
heard
that
enough
challenge?
people talk about it, so I think I can try it. I mean, I've tried it before. I
Yeah.
tried the breath. Somebody once upon a time, a person told me to take 20 consecutive breaths, like breathe deep, breathe in, deep, breathe out,
Mm-hmm.
exhale. And
Hmm.
after, I've tried. I think I've got to like 10, and then I was just like, all right, this is just getting weird. So I
No,
move
man,
on
you
to
Yes.
gotta
something else.
stick
But
to it.
Yeah.
You gotta stick to it. And so
Yes.
again, I saw myself. My son is my inspiration. You can tell. He was studying in the pool, and his swimming teacher told him take 10 breaths, and then we he told him to blow bubbles.
Mm.
And now whenever he's mad, I say, okay, let's blow 5 bubbles, 5 by 5. So
Yes.
he takes 5 seconds to blow 5 bubbles. So he has to hold it for 5 seconds and blow it for five. And I
Mm.
found that it calms him down completely. So we call it the 5 by 5. So anytime he gets angry,
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
give me a five
perfect.
by five, and he does it, and it
Yeah,
works.
Mhm.
it's
Stick to it, Ron.
perfect,
Stick to
perfect.
it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's like I think it's in for 7, hold for 4,
Okay.
out for 8. It's a system that's used a lot for people who suffer from anxiety. Like you feel
Okay.
like you're gonna get. So it is focusing you and helping you to control your physiological reaction to things. by focusing on your breathing, and it just calms your entire system right down. Because we're just used to being busy, 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 busy all the
Right.
time.
So
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I'm gonna try something. Vaughn,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
you want to have a system to protect you from subliminal programming, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But if you try this breathing technique, 748, the
Mhm.
magic number is 748, you will
Mm-hmm.
then be more mindful and therefore less susceptible to subliminal. So instead of this passive, oh, I've tried it, it didn't work, I'm giving you a reason to try
No, yeah, I intend to
it.
try. I mean, I have enough friends who have tried it and they recommend it. So I think it's time to
Yes. Oh
take a
yeah.
second look at it and appreciate it
Mhm.
in a much deeper way. It's funny that you mentioned anxiety. I
Mhm.
guess I wanted to just, if you could just touch on it briefly for a second. A tip to other than meditation, of course, but tips to
Mhm.
help persons, because anxiety is more and more thinking it's becoming a far more common
Mhm.
issue that people are dealing with nowadays.
Yes. Yeah.
Anxiety, it's real. It's crippling almost.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, well, certainly, I would say that that breathing tip that I just said, 7, 4, and 8, is something that if you find yourself, people have what they call panic attacks, right?
mhm,
They may be out, they may be in a strange place or whatever, and you just never know when it might come on. And so I've used it very successfully with persons to get you into that space of feeling back in control of yourself.
mhm,
So that's it. It's kind of getting to that point of being out of control. Anxiety is really your unconscious mind telling you to focus on the outcome that you want.
mhm,
Because if you focus on the outcome that you want, you can't feel anxious.
mhm,
What you are doing is focusing on it being negative. You are predicting the future negatively.
mhm.
Mhm.
Right. That's actually true. You're
It
just
is,
pent up on the worst possible outcome happening, and
yes.
then worrying and driving
And
yourself crazy.
exactly. And so some of that can be um, logic based. In other words, you can talk yourself through it. You can say, hey,
Mhm.
you know, what evidence do I have that that would actually happen? What probability is that going to be? I mean, you can use rational in that way to talk yourself out of it and say, but this is not really something that is likely to happen. In all probability, it's not going to. So, for what reason am I going to focus on that negative outcome? But that is what anxiety is, it's predicting a negative outcome to whatever it is that you are doing. And so you hold on to that. So you just need to change that thinking and turn it around and say, hey, let me focus on really what I want and do everything that I need to do in order to make it positive. Because when you're anxious, you're not in a good position to get a good result.
No.
That's the other thing. And you probably, some people are paralyzed by the anxiety
Right.
and they just don't get off their butt to do anything. So it's really helping you to reframe it and to look at it and say, hey, you know what I actually do. People are living in a fear-based bubble most of the time, and they just don't recognize the power that they have, the power that we have
Mhm.
to live life in a different way. So it's helping to burst that bubble and to say,
Right.
hey, no, I really can.
So I can just vision it and I can just achieve it like how I want. All right, I think I'm not gonna hold you hostage any longer, Liz. So I'm just gonna say, with that, I think we can wrap today's program. Thank you for coming
Thank you
through and dropping
so
some
Yes.
useful
much.
information about
So
how we
wonderful,
Yes.
can,
so
you
inspiring,
know,
so positive.
right?
My pleasure.
NLP is the door to maybe changing some negative mindsets and putting us in the right on the right path towards achieving, visioning, and achieving the outcomes that we want for our lives. And like you said,
That's
it
right.
starts with taking responsibility for your actions and appreciating that you, notwithstanding external forces like COVID and disasters and
Mhm.
stuff like that, we all have to take responsibility for our lives and then make
Mhm.
necessary changes to achieve what we want. Thank you so much for dropping the
That's right.
knowledge. We really appreciate it. Tell people again where they can find you if they want to link up with you and go through some of your courses.
Sure. My website is there, limitlesstransformationja.com, or they can email me,
Understanding
nlptraining
that is
jamaica
important
at
because what does that
gmail.com.
say?
It
Find me
really
on
says,
Facebook.
because when you're taking
Maybe
that
this
information,
transformation Jamaica or
you
WhatsApp
are
me. It's
then forming a kind of memory
765565177.
snapshot
All
of
right,
it,
and this has been Let
which
That
is
Sink
likely to
In. We
be
again ask you
something
to subscribe
visual,
to our channel. We have
something
all kind of good
auditory, and
content,
some
just ways to help
feeling
you win
attached
at
to it.
life, succeed in your chosen profession. That's the goal of this podcast. Give you tips, practical ways to go and be great, go and succeed and all that. So tune in next time. We'll have another great guest dropping more gems for you to win at life and be great and be successful and all of that jazz. Scarlett, any closing words?
It was a wonderful session today, and I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah.
Great. All right, great. Take care, guys. Be good to each
Yes.
other. Have a great day and tune
Yes.
in
Take
next time.
care.
Bye bye.
Delightful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Liz.